All right, we're back. I just got done unclogging the Golden Throne, so now we can talk about part 2 of deployment.
All right. In this one, we're going to talk about infiltrators during deployment. It has several different types of infiltrators, and they have different jobs. But one of the biggest things that I'm going to bring up that I always tell people is when it comes to if you were playing infiltrators before you start deploying anything, ask your opponent if they have infiltrators. If they do, that means that your areas for placing your infiltrators is already contested. Whether they deploy first, you deploy first, you know that you're not going to be able to deploy wherever you want. So you really want to deploy your infiltrators first, and as early as possible, if your opponent also has infiltrators.
If you both have them, do you roll like a separate initiative for who?
Nope. You're alternating deployments, and when you go to deploy, you can choose deploy a infiltrator unit or a non-infiltrator unit. It's just a part of deploying. But you alternate. So if you go first, you get to deploy your infiltrate unit, and then I'll deploy mine, basically preventing you from coming to this area, but you've prevented me from going somewhere else. And assuming we have more than that, because like Tyranids, for example, tend to run like 3 or 4 infiltrating units, you would just go back and forth until those guys are done. Obviously, if I have 1 infiltrating unit and you have like 3, I'll deploy my 1, you'll deploy 1, and then I'm going to be deploying non-infiltrating units while you keep deploying whatever it is you want to deploy. But yeah, this is a big one of if they have infiltrators, you want to get yours out as quickly as possible because you are preventing their infiltrators from being in a good position, and you are ensuring that your infiltrators get to be in the best position you can put them in. The opposite of this, though, is depending on the job of your infiltrators. If you have infiltrators and your opponent does not, many times you want to put your infiltrators out last. And I mean like dead last.
Gotcha.
If your unit is screening, you can screen a position. And if they also have infiltrators, putting that out early is pretty solid, because while you're giving your opponent some information, arguably you're not giving them a ton of information, because if you just, I'm going to put my screening unit out and I'm going to spread it out as far as I can, well, when they go to put their infiltrators, most of what they're thinking about is, oh, my infiltrators don't have a good position anymore. Maybe that's why they put them there. And that's enough information, because that's probably true, even if you know already in your head that, like, but I've got this scary unit that I don't want to get charged on turn 1. I'm going to put it behind this screening unit. They may think that you're going to put it behind there, or they may not. But if they have infiltrating units and you put it out first, I know exactly where you're going to put, you know, the scary brick. But if they don't have infiltrating units, why give them that information?
Right.
You could put the screening units out way later after, if nothing else, if there's a scary unit that you don't want to charge your like important unit, waiting on the screening unit would help you screen that unit better. Knowing where the terrain is, and like, let's say they can't walk through walls because they're monsters or whatever, like Carnifex is. Well, I would rather screen between these 2 buildings because it'll protect my important thing than these 2 buildings based upon where they deployed.
Right. So, are there infiltrators that stop infiltrate?
The short answer is no. However, the answer is kind of yes. So the general answer is when you infiltrate, you have to be outside 9 of your opponent's deployment zone and of any other units. So just putting an infiltrator unit out effectively prevents them from infiltrating within 9 of any part of that unit that you put out. This also means that things like scout moves, they can't scout within 9 of that unit. So it's also influencing other parts of the game as well. That being said, there are some pretty impressive tricks you can use as far as redeploys, which we'll talk about later, to where you could infiltrate a unit out, preventing their infiltrate, and then redeploy that unit after everyone's deployed, protecting that unit that you put out as infiltrators and bringing them back so that they're not just going to be sacrificial turn 1.
So when it comes to aggression, which I see on here,
Yes.
I always feel like, one, it's a little gambly because you don't know who's going first yet, but also it can be a little less gambly depending on like the durability of the unit. If I put Grots up, way up, they actually scout, but whatever. If I were to infiltrate Grots somehow, I'd be like, well, their only job is to screen. If I go second, they're dead. Like, there's no...
Right.
They were just... They're cheap, though, you know, so...
Yeah. So sometimes that's enough. Sacrificial units are very useful in that you prevent their move. So we've played games before where I was using the Thunder Cav and they could, you know, advance 9 inches and still charge after that. So, like, the fact that you just prevent me from getting across the board when I definitely could get across the board turn 1, who cares if the Grots die? You've already stopped 300-400 points worth of model from doing anything turn 1, other than, I guess, killing like 40 points worth of Grots. Fair.
Yeah.
So that's screening. When I say aggression, it's less about being aggressive as far as positioning is concerned. And there are infiltrator units that are damage dealing units. There are several factions that have like relics that could give a unit that doesn't have infiltrate, things like that. So if you're taking like a big brick of Terminators and you're infiltrating them up turn 1, well, the fact that they're so slow makes it to where, like, if I go first, I could get a turn 1 charge and wow, these guys, you know, could output damage. Even if I don't go first, they're pretty durable. And because they could output so much damage, it's not about screening. It's about them becoming this giant bullet sponge because they're so tough. Because if they don't deal with me, my damage output is going to cause a problem for them.
Right.
Okay. So, yeah, when you are infiltrating, again, many times when it comes to especially screening, if they have infiltrators, get your screeners out as quickly as possible, prevent them from infiltrating into a good position for them. Sometimes it's better than actually like screening the melee unit that they may place later. If you have an aggressive damage dealing or durable based unit that you're going to infiltrate up, many times you want to put that as late as possible because you don't want to tell your opponent where you're going to go. But if they also have infiltrators, many times it's better to get in the most advantageous position for them than it is to not give them the information, because by the time that they put out their infiltrators and you're like, ha, gotcha, I get to put them out, they've already told you, you don't get a choice. You're going to deploy on this side of the table because you can't deploy over here anymore at all.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I guess we'll talk about more on the next one, right?
Yep.